Welcome, 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 LinkedIn. We are on here. Stay tuned.
He challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn, engagement, being the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunity.
We all deal with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth is live on air.
Yeah, baby, we are live on air. If you like that new intro, drop a comment down in the LinkedIn feed. If you're viewing on Facebook or YouTube, put something in the chat. We love this. We are doing a live show, and with the live show comes that live interaction, all the craziness that happens with the live show. And this particular show is about finding your voice. And so whether it's finding your voice to speak up in your workplace or finding your voice to do a show like this or a podcast, something going on with you, right? Bringing your voice out to clear, following your passions, being upfront, living your purpose. That is what we're talking about today. Do you have a main hustle that is great, but you wish you could be doing something else that drives some purpose? That's what we're talking about today. Finding your voice, finding the different ways to express yourself. Steve, talk to me about finding your voice. Let me introduce you to the master connector himself, Mr. Steve Spiro.
What's going on, friend? Steve Spiro, the master connector, coming at you live and direct. So Diana Hardy said, it only takes one voice at the right pitch to start an avalanche. And, your voice is powerful. Some have a voice that, we're intimidated to share. I was that person for years. I was just, I didn't want to speak up. Others, maybe they haven't found our voice, right? And that was also me too, right? I didn't know, first I was afraid. And then secondly, I don't know, what is my voice, right? So the question today that we're going to ponder is, how do you find your voice? Today's guest, assuming he's able to work out the challenges here, is going to have he's had an amazing journey discovering his true voice. He's got a background in the military where he leadership is obviously paramount. And however, he says in his podcast, in order to lead yourself, you need to know yourself. And so today we're going to help. Today we'll help you kickstart your journey to find your voice. And so, Cameron, he was trying to call me, so I'm going to let you take this for a few seconds.
Absolutely. So let me tell you, folks, it's not an easy thing. I was talking about in the office today, whether it's just doing public speaking or following your passion, right? These are things that you need to exercise. There is no muscles built without that actual implementation of the skills. And Steve put up a great post today. So much of getting to success is starting. And so finding your voice, and I think you'll hear it from our guests today. You've certainly heard it from guests in the past. Yolanda Chen, thank you for checking in. You've heard it before, Yolanda, from us. It's this idea that if you want to get somewhere, if you want to do something, you need to jump into it. I think it's really incredible to see children. And, if you've been watching this show, I have 4 children at home, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And it's really interesting to see them versus other children, their cousins. In my household, as you can imagine, they're seeing me doing a lot of these live presentations, these shows. And, let me know in the comments, right? If you're having this experience with children, wanting them to speak up more. Certainly happened with my daughter. She's 16 now, but at one time, teachers were like, we want her to raise her hand more. We want her to be more outspoken. And it's a really good microcosm to see what you might need in your life, right? Do you need to raise your hand a little more? Do you need to be a little bit more outspoken? And then, we talk about here, right, Steve? You got two ears and one mouth for a reason. You don't
Yeah.
want to go too far to the other spectrum because you don't want your voice to cloud out everything, including what's going on in your own head, right? You don't have enough time to even think about what you're going to say and actually be that outward focused human being. And so finding your voice, finding that muscle, exercising it, and listening to people so that you can have the most impact is really special, right? All pieces of finding your voice. But I think we finally got our special.
Yeah, we finally got our voice. And you talk about things in our head and all that kind of stuff. We're it was a lot going on, just trying to, like you said, dealing with live TV. It's great, but we're excited, and so I want you guys, now that we have Zack backstage, if you're ready to have my man Cameron introduce Zack. And Zack, we're going to want you to be animated because you're going to be full screen when we pull you in here, sir. But if you're ready for Cameron to introduce this amazing Zack, I'd like you to type in hashtag Let's Go, LETSGO. And we're going to start to introduce my man. So Cameron, thank you for all you do, being the magician behind the curtain here and all that you do for us on the show. It's amazing. You are amazing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's bring Zack in here. I'm going to introduce you. Zack, thanks for being here. Just animate yourself for me for a moment here. I'm going to put you large on the screen, and we're going to get this intro flowing. All right. Now, Zack Knight, everybody, he has an amazing story. Zack started his leadership journey working in the metro Atlanta area as a police officer and a SWAT, that's SWAT operator. Yes, those guys. The big guns. After 7 years serving his local community, he transitioned to the role of an infantry leader in the U.S. Army and continued to serve during a combat deployment to Afghanistan and locally in the United States with the Georgia National Guard. In between time away with the military, Zack has been able to build 6 businesses ranging from a security consulting firm, a domestic violence awareness nonprofit, to an international dance competition. He and his business partner grew to over 150 countries in the first year of operation. At the center of his journey, Zack is focused on 2 things: service and leadership. His podcast, The Tactical Leader, furthers this journey and his service, helping him and his audience learn and grow from leaders across the world. Please welcome to the show the voice to empower your day, Mr. Zack Knight.
What's going on, guys? I appreciate y'all welcoming me.
Oh, no,
and I need to take personal responsibility because we're about integrity and transparency, and that him not being on the show, Zack, was me. I sent the wrong StreamYard link. So thank you for being on time, and it's all on me, and I take full responsibility. But we're pumped that you're here with us now, and we're excited to have you on the show. So, we're all about stories. It's a big part of our the thread of our show and sort of the overcoming story. And we'd love to hear, a short version, because obviously it's only a 30-minute show. But how did you find your voice from, military, right, to that crazy, amazing background you had? And by the way, thank you for your service. I know we spoke about it when we chatted. Normally, when I don't have this crazy background behind me, I have, the burial flag from my grandfather, and big time. Both Cameron and I, both big, supporters of the men and women that serve. So thank you again for that. But that voice, how you find it from the military to where you are today? Tell us a little bit about your journey, if you could, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. It's an interesting one, man. It's something that I think a lot of veterans we deal with, obviously, but I think it's kind of like a human being piece of things, right? We all get into a world, a realm of this is my identity. So I was a cop for a lot of years, did the SWAT aspect like y'all talked about. Actually left that. I did it backwards. I left that and went into the military. And then in the military, I was an infantry leader. I deployed to the Green Berets in 2019. Ran operations for several months, lost a few guys along the way. And as I transitioned, I actually got injured over there. And as I transitioned, about a year and a half later, that nerve damage finally caught up with me, and I'm getting discharged, still currently getting discharged, actually. It was an interesting piece when you start losing your identity. You start losing different pieces of your uniform, your brotherhood, your community, different things there. And a big piece for me in that transition space was recognizing different things I love about myself that wasn't a uniform, right? For 15 years, I was Officer Knight or Lieutenant Captain Knight, whatever it may have been, that titling. That's how I was known. So really stepping forward has been a journey over the last year and a half of when I officially left active duty about a year and a half ago. And it's been a journey trying to find things about myself that aren't military or SWAT or that high octane side of things. In the midst of that, I started the 6 businesses. I actually just started the 7th 2 weeks ago. So just launched another one that is actually in that veteran space. So it's kind of it's a difficult thing to really conceptualize, but a lot of it has been a personal growth journey of trying to find those things about myself that I actually like and love about myself that wasn't just tied to what I was doing as a job, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, right? I know in both from the law enforcement side, which, frontline, obviously men and women that serve in a different way, but just tons of respect there to the military. It can really mess with your head, right? And it can mess with who you are as a person, right? And, all the tragedy you see and hear and feel and experience, right? And sometimes maybe, like you said, it could wear on, who you are as a person and your self-esteem. And, we all have our version of our journeys that perhaps affect our self-worth, our self-esteem. And, we're all about here on the show. And a lot of what I like to speak about is really just, finding peace within who you are and really accepting who you are, that self-acceptance, if you know what I mean. And so kudos to you that you were able to go through all that and find that. But so we'd like to talk a little bit about in this next subject. We'd like our community, and thank you for those who caught on and hit hashtag story. But now we want to do hashtag what, because we want to hear, what does it mean to Zack Knight? And love the fact that your last name is Knight, Knight. Huge, believer of the Knights of the Round Table, and this is a cool name, man. It's awesome. But what does it mean for to Zack Knight to discover your own voice? And you started to allude to that a little bit, so please share that with us, if you would, sir.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing, man. 18 months ago, I had surgery on my arm, so the nerve in my elbow ended up getting crushed, but I didn't even recognize it. So the journey was actually that one. A lot of veterans, again, we all struggle with this, where we don't seek help, we don't seek that outside assistance. We start isolating ourselves, which is what I was doing leading up to the surgery. A little bit over 18 months ago, I was a week away from the surgery. I had a pistol in my mouth. I was on the end of a dock, and I was ready to just end it, become that statistic, one of those 22 a day. And honestly, the one thing that stopped me from it, I shot off a text message, sent a text message to my ex, and I said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be, taken care of for the rest of your life." And she sent back, "The cops are on the way. Don't you dare." And I got so mad in that moment that I felt betrayed. But that's kind of the common conversation that veterans have, the common retort. We feel like everybody around us doesn't understand. We're betrayed. People don't support us. So when in reality, a lot of people support us in ways that we don't recognize. And a lot of my journey from that point forward was literally looking myself in the mirror. I was looking at went through therapy, finally found somebody that was an accountability partner, a battle buddy. He brought up a question that changed my life. And there are actually 2 questions that shifted that dynamic. The first one, he said, "Do you even love yourself anymore?" And he said, "Go upstairs, look in the mirror. Do you love yourself anymore?" And I went upstairs and I literally started crying, balled up on the floor, started crying, bawling, that I couldn't even look myself in the mirror and say, "I love myself." The second question that shifted that was my therapist. God bless therapy. He saved my life. But he asked me, "Have you ever thought about blaming the person that pulled the trigger, not yourself, for the guilt, the survivor's guilt, the leader's guilt, all the guilt of not bringing back the soldiers on the operations I planned?" Those 2 things pushed me to recognize a different rhetoric that I think a lot of us don't understand when we go through struggles. And you hear it all the time, what happened for you, not to you. And having that shift and having those people in my life helped me shift that. I shifted more into the rebrand. Instead of being in the background, I started stepping forward more. I started doing different things like a podcast, but shifted to podcasts. I'm writing a book, bringing my voice out. And the big shift there was stepping to the forefront. Business started getting better, life's relationships. I actually have relationships now, right? Whether that's friends, family, all those people I isolated myself away from, I'm able to confidently stand there and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I love about myself. And I want you to love me for this piece of who I am, because you now actually know who I am. And I think that's a big piece, identifying who I am to myself and then letting everybody else know this is who I am. And you love me, hate me, whatever it may be, but I'm going to stand strong in who I am.
I love that. And, that's why we connected so well, because, we have, I mean, certainly a different story to tell, but a lot of similarities, right? I mean, I was in a dark place for other reasons, but, I also credit a therapist, right? My mom happens to be a therapist as well, but I created a therapist to help me get into a place where I started to really love myself and accept myself. And just, and I know that when you isolate, it's easy for darkness to kind of muster and kind of just survive. But when you get out there and share and be around others and force yourself, that darkness kind of like it doesn't like the light, right? And I know that's what our show's about, right? You just uplift, inspire, be the light. And
Steve,
when you inspire others,
I
you
want
do
to
that.
chime on that, because I
Sure,
think this is
please.
a common thing. And Zach, you're probably not along with me, but I was talking about my daughter before, and about, teachers saying, oh, we want to hear her voice more. She's not raising her hand. And so, where that sort of crossed the lines, because, we definitely went in a whole different direction when you're talking about folks that are feeling isolated. Right. And so I think one thing does lead into another. If you teach your children that you got to keep it all bottled up inside, and that you can't self-advocate, or, that that's not an appropriate avenue, you don't teach that, what does that lead to, right? That leads to people holding it all inside. It's a bottle and it bursts. You mentioned being in the darkest place possible, gun in your mouth. I wanted to make sure that people know that help exists. And so a lot of the time, if you don't say something, we don't know. And I think about the question for you, which I think is a big deal, because I read that amazing bio. You've had success in multiple careers. How can you be successful and down on yourself? And this is something I think as a society, we all have to get a better understanding of, because, Robin Williams, somebody I greatly admire, somebody that made me laugh, made me smile. This man is a man that suffered from deep depression right towards the end. And so it's not who you think, right? And so that's a big deal. So being sensitive and asking people is a big thing that we can do for the community. But for you, if you're feeling this, and for all of us, I know I get into those moments where I'm doing things and I feel like I'm just going through the motions, going through the grind, because this is what's expected of me. This is what I have to do. I have to support my family. I have to support my kids. I have to support myself. I have to look a certain way. I have to feel a certain way for those around me. And that is tough. That's what I heard in what you were saying, Zach, that the idea that, you're having to live up to other people's expectations and ideas. The comparison game, which we talk about all the time, is a game that we should not be playing, right? We are all special and we all lead different lives and have unique things, and it's an abundant world. But that idea, that piece that says, hey, I can advocate, I can raise my hand, I can let my voice be heard. Such a huge deal. So thank you for sharing that, Zach. And I wanted to go back to that, if you would, just for a moment, that idea that you've had success, but you were still feeling this way. So, in your work, what threaded that needle, right? What got you to recognize that you got good stuff going on and not to focus on this negative?
To be honest, I didn't. I never recognized it. And at that point, when I was at the end of a dock, I had all 6 businesses. Everything was rolling. Everything was going really well. But I honestly, not only did I hate the process, I hated everything I was going through. I hated the guy looking back at me in the mirror. And honestly, it's kind of a weird dichotomy, but and I think you can see this in the hyper successful. I buried myself in business. I buried myself in achieving in a way so I could prove I was still worth something, if that makes sense. So I was almost getting that validity I needed, right? I needed that support from, hey, I can actually show I'm worth something. But also in the same time, I was alienating everybody. I was isolating everybody around me. I was destroyed a marriage, destroyed friendships, family. I had to repair all of those things. So in reality, during all of that, I never once did I look at it objectively like, man, I've got a lot going for me and I should be thankful for all those things. And the shift wasn't the end of a dock. That actually wasn't rock bottom. Rock bottom was when I couldn't look myself in the mirror and have that conversation about loving myself. That's where I actually hit rock bottom. And for me, the realization, and I can't say enough thanks for that guy that was my battle buddy in that moment that challenged that. The realization for me was recognizing something was broken. And a lot of people, that can be a term that a lot of people don't love to hear. For me, and this worked for me, it doesn't work for everybody. I'm not the David Goggins, Jocko Willink. This works for everybody mindset, right? For me, the mindset was I recognized something in my mind was broken. And as somebody that's an achiever that wants to go do stuff, once I had that recognition, I then found the capability in myself. I could fix that. It was actually empowering for me to recognize something was broken, because if it's not broken, you don't have any reason to fix it. So if I never realized that was broken, the mindset, the relationships, the friendships, the actual limiter I had, I was limiting myself. I can only be so successful when I'm miserable or I'm in a bottle of bourbon every night, right? I can only be so successful. So recognizing a couple things that were broken there. Oh, okay, this is broken. I can fix that. Therapy. I can get therapy. I can find help. I can fix it through this. I can fix it through that. The self-mastery journey, which is what a lot of my book is about. It's about those tactics I use to move out of that dark place and actually find those actionable steps, from gratitude to morning routine to meditation. Dear Lord, I could never meditate. The silence was deafening. Those things help me shift that and recognize, all right, here's how I fix this a little bit. Here's how I fix this a little bit. And the acknowledgement of hey, this is broken. Let's fix it, and let's fix it together, is what that shift was for me.
I love that. And it's really interesting when you say that meditation thing, because I hear different books saying different things. A book that Steve recommended, right? The Power of Positive Thinking. Yep. It's taken a very Christian approach to it, which was interesting hearing it just said in different terms, right? Because I'm listening to this book and it's like, find your quiet place. This book's saying, find your mental zone, right? And this one is saying, practice peace and pray. It just, everybody's got to find their own unique way to find their inner quiet, right?
Yeah. And I couldn't do it. Literally every time I was in silence. What's crazy about this, the 6 months, I was actually getting promoted to captain. I was in this training course. It was the first time. I was 32 years old. I'd never lived alone before. I either had a spouse, a roommate, family living with me. This was the first time I was actually truly in silence. And every time I was in silence, that's when they got the loudest. The skeletons in the closet started clawing, right? They wanted to be let out. Everything, you have that time to think. So for me, meditation was like anxiety and panic driven. I can't meditate because then that's when the silence happens. So understanding meditation doesn't mean sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya or with your legs crossed, right? There's so many different ways to meditate, even if it's listening to a podcast on the drive to work and zoning out and be able to meditate, not listening to the podcast, but it kind of puts you in that mindset of learning and that mindset of being able to just think without it attacking you. That was the big shift for me, is understanding what silence is and what silence isn't alongside that meditation.
Absolutely. I could relate it. I also dreaded, not so much now, but dreaded the silence as well. Because you know what, like you, I didn't want to face who I was, and that was the challenge. So some of the techniques that I've been able to implement, I do meditation, but I do creative visualization meditation. So I have some music that I play, and I have a kind of a film script that I play in my mind, words and visual of what I'm seeing. And that's my version of meditation. And that works for me, right? I think everybody has different things that are going to work for them in different ways. But the point is that you got to do something, and you need to find that peace. You got to find what works for you. So kudos to you. I just blown away because again, a lot like Cameron said, you had success, but yet you were like, and you said it just like I felt the same way. I was busy to isolate myself from myself and from other people, and it was despair. Quite frankly, I didn't realize it, but it was quiet desperation. It's really what it was for me.
That's such a great way to explain it because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we want to keep things moving here. We want to talk to you a little bit about, on discipline, right? So I want you to, for the viewers or community, with hashtag discipline, and we'd like to learn how we can develop, all of us included, discipline in our life. I mean, there's been a lot of discipline in your life, right? But how can we take that and make it something that we could really leverage?
Yeah, discipline's a funny thing because you see a lot of veterans when they get out of the military, it's like one or two ways. They maintain it or they completely lose it. And I've never seen that in between. It's so difficult to recognize what discipline is. And I think there are different levels attached to it. For me, morning routine's a big one. I don't know if everybody saw, but you can YouTube it. A speech, Make Your Bed in the Morning by Admiral McRaven. And he talks about, as soon as you get out of the bed, first thing you do is make the bed, right? Keeps you from going back in the bed. It gets you one small win for the day. It gets you started, right? Start with a small victory. For me, it is that instead of discipline, I like to think of it as intentionality. How am I going to be intentional with my day? What am I doing from this podcast to my morning routine to a meeting? I want to be intentional in all of that. So in the morning, we're talking about gratitude. I write 3 things I'm grateful for in the mirror every morning, very intentionally on the mirror in the bathroom, because every time I go to the bathroom throughout the day, I'll see that. It's a refresher for me of what I was grateful for the day before. So it keeps it in the forefront. And it's that type of intentionality. You can set it up the night before. Put your gym shoes by the door. Put the clothes out by and ready to go, so you don't have an excuse to go back to bed or not get out of bed. That's where I think the baseline is for me, is that intentionality of, all right, in the morning, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. I do every day. I'm going to the gym at 5 a.m. And that hour between waking up and the gym, I'm being grateful. I'm taking my dog just turned 16. I just had a sweet 16 party with her last weekend. So I'm going to spend some time with my dog. She's been there through all of it. And then I'm going to do a little bit of reading and meditation right before I go to the gym, and that every morning, intentional about, this is how I'm starting my day. And I think that sets the day for what looks like discipline. And in reality, it's just me being intentional with how I'm spending my time.
I love that. I think there's 2 things that you can get from that routine. Number one, I think it gives you something to look forward to get up and you have something to do versus wallow in what you've maybe didn't do or whatever. You can kind of, it gives you something. Okay, I'm ready. I'm purpose. I did a post this morning about the best way to get success. I'm paraphrasing, is just get started, right? So it gives you a way to just get moving, right? You got, okay, I'm gonna just go to the gym, right? Whatever it is, right? Meditate, whatever it is. And then the second thing is it gives you some ways in which you can check off things that have helped you win the day, right? I mean, I love that phrase, win the day, right? And you've got some things you want to accomplish, and maybe a big part of that is your morning routine, and you can check that off that I did that, and feel good about what you did. And also, I believe it's a separator, because not everybody is disciplined in the morning, or as you say, intentional in the morning with those things that they do daily. So it's another separator. It's saying, hey, I'm doing what a lot of people aren't willing to do, right? I love the fact that nowadays, every morning I wake up, I stretch and I meditate and I work out and a bunch of other things, but I'm glad that I'm getting that workout in. And, I haven't seen any massive changes in my body frame. Starting to see it. I've gotten some compliments recently, but I know I'm doing the right thing, and I know I'm separating, right?
Looking good, Steve. Looking good.
I appreciate that, Cameron. I'll pay you later for that one, sir. So it's awesome. Well, Zack, you mentioned you mentioned the podcast, right? And I know you've got a great podcast, and so we'd like you to talk a little bit about that. So hashtag right now, community hashtag podcast. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but why start the podcast? I mean, you came up with obviously the tactical leader, right? Well, Why podcast? And not, I mean, obviously it's not for everybody to start a podcast, but tell us a little bit of the mindset behind that.
Yeah, man. Originally, I'd been wanting to start a podcast. I started it back in 2019. I've been wanting to start it for a couple years, and didn't think I had anything to say. And that's part of the discovering my voice piece, right? I didn't think I had anything to say anybody would want to listen to. And then I was in a mastermind, and the people in the mastermind were like, dude, why don't you have a podcast? Half of us do, and you see what's happening. And I'm like, I don't know what I'll talk about that people would care. And they're like, well, you're tactical, not only in the profession, but at that point, I do a lot of business coaching, consulting in the operations space, all about those business tactics to move the needle. So they're like, you're tactical in what you're doing. You're a leadership guy. They said expert. I won't put myself there no matter what my experience looks like. I'm wanting to be. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but I don't want to talk. They're like, okay, so go on a journey. Figure out what do you want to learn about, and then go learn about it through a podcast. And it's gotten me some amazing doors open, some amazing people on. Really, it's just about learning the tactics and leadership. As I rebranded, as I went through this darker period, I actually rebranded from tactical leadership to the tactical leader. And I started interviewing people that I consider to be the tactical leader in their realm. And you can see the shift. I went from business tactics to personal life tactics. How do you get through this part of your mindset? How do you get through? And it honestly became therapy in a way. I get to have conversations with high level people that are out here hustling that will allow us to learn little nuggets of gold from them. So I almost used it as like an outlet before I ever found therapy, before I ever hit this true bounce back in the right direction. I used it to connect with people that had the answer I was looking for. And that was the biggest value add for me in my life, from business, where, it's part of my marketing and sales strategies, but also personally. Like, how did you get through this hard time in your life? How did you become resilient in ways I'm not resilient? And that's been huge for me.
That's great. Yeah, you're right. I mean, everything you said, spot on, but not necessarily for everybody to do a podcast. We started with this show, which I think just getting your voice out there, whether it's a video, whether it's some kind of maybe post, but getting your voice out there I find it to be liberating. I find it to be, it's medicine. It's a vitamin to me. I feel like I'm doing good. And because of that, it gives me a good purpose. Right. So again, maybe you're not ready to do a podcast. We started by my journey on, on this crazy world, this digital world we're in is, I started out doing posts every day, or regularly. I was doing like a weekly positive message post print. And then I said, all right, I was challenged to do a video every day. I started doing weekly video. I still do that Friday to Friday. And then got approved for LinkedIn Live, talked to my man Cameron, and then we started this live broadcast, which has been an amazing journey. And then now we've got a podcast that this now feeds into a podcast. So it's great, but not everybody has that journey. So don't feel like the message about this is you got to have a podcast, but the message is you need to get your voice out there and just let people hear you, because it'll inspire others. You never know what one word that you're saying could really be that difference for somebody else. So for sure. On that note, I want to talk to you a little bit about legacy. So #legacy community, if you can. And I believe that mentorship, that's my perspective. Mentorship is our legacy, right? We don't have kids, but we have a lot of people that we've been blessed to have an influence on. And I believe that's going to be our legacy. So tell us a little bit what legacy means to you, Zack Knight.
Legacy is one of those big things. And it really started years ago when I read Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And it really set the intentionality and purpose behind different things we were doing. When you look at the background, I think my last name, I have the armor tattooed on me, right? So I took my personal values as a knight very seriously. And it's actually not my given name. It's actually my stepfather's name that I took as a teenager because I wanted to honor him. So a lot of things I do in business are named after Knight. His name, not my name. So I want to bring honor and integrity into everything that I'm doing. So that's a big piece. And for me, the legacy is not starting with why, but it's ending with why. What are you thinking about long term that's going to outlast me? We all die twice. The first time we die, we leave the physical earth. The second time we die is the last time somebody spoke our name. So how do you continue that forward after you've left? And for me, it's the two nonprofits that I have, the domestic violence nonprofit and the foundation I just started the beginning of the month. It's for veteran business owners. Those two pieces are my big legacy piece. How am I making an impact in this world that goes beyond myself, but also brings value to two causes I'm very passionate about.
Love that. That's great. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if I realized that that's not your actual given name, Knight. That's cool. But I love that name. I love it, man. Maybe I'll adopt that name myself because it's just so important to me as well.
Got to lose the hair. Knights are bald these days, you know.
You know what? I'm getting close to that, so I'm getting ready to. I've already got my wife got me the razor, the electric razor that just it's got the round thing. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, Zach. I'm almost there. So. But anyway, the last question we want to end. We're going to wrap up the show here, but so just maybe some final thoughts. I want you to type in hashtag persist community, PERSIST. And we want to just, maybe some final thoughts on how do you have resilience to persist through the hardships? And then if you can, maybe tell everybody how the best way to reach you. But you've been amazing. And so if you could bring us home with that, how to persist through hardships, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's your people. They say it. Jim Rohn had a quote a long time ago: "The 5 people you surround yourself." You've heard your network is your net worth. I apply that, your net worth, not just in business but in your life. You got to find a couple people that are riding right beside you, your battle buddies, the people that literally will take their shirt off their back that you can call. But beyond that, you have to be willing to make the call, right? When I isolated myself, the people that I knew would show up are the exact people I didn't call because I didn't want to be a burden, right? But those people were actually the people that would have helped me the most if I'd allowed them to. So for me, that persistence, that resiliency comes in the people that are the closest to you, whether that's spouses, family, friends, business associates, somebody you can rely on in different circles in that community. Then y'all can reach out to me. Pretty simple. It's zackknight.com, ZCK, the letter A, knight.com. All my social, the podcast, the book release is there. Everything's really a quick and easy spot. Or y'all can just hit me up on LinkedIn, same name. I monitor my own LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time. So it's a great way to reach out and connect. I'd love to hear from everybody.
That's awesome. Yeah. And for me, a lot of people in my life, but I appreciate Cameron. Cameron is one of those guys in my life. I have a small circle of people that are that support system for me. And Zach, I'm honored that you're now part of that small, circle as well. And I appreciate you, sir, and what you're doing. So community, absolutely make sure you connect with Zach. He's got an incredible story, as you started to hear. And again, if you're in any way hurting, reach out, whether it's the number that Cameron posted earlier or just reach out to us, right? Then thank you, Cameron.
Yeah,
if there is some challenges.
Always happy to take that phone call, that message. Yeah. I think it's one of those things. If you need a lifeline, man, people are going to be there for you.
No doubt. Well, this has been amazing. So Zach, thank you for bringing the light. Obviously it's, we talked about some tough stuff. We talked about some darkness, but the only way a light shines is that when there's darkness, right? Light, if you're in a bright room and there's a light that comes in, nobody sees it, right? But when there's darkness, that light comes in and it can almost blind you. And that's what we're doing here, is we're shining the light. So thank you for doing that. And we're appreciative of all our community. Hopefully you're in the comments, networking with each other and making sure you connect with each other, reach out, right? We're all about connecting. It's why it's the Master Connector Show, right? It's all about connection. And connection is not.
Me and Zach actually just connected, and I sent a connection request to Suriana. I'm not working in the comments. Make sure you guys are doing it too. We appreciate you. Want to make sure that next week, episode 85, Marie Zutumo Quintanilla, living your best life. Same bad time, same bad channel. We also want to thank our sponsors who are amazing, folks that you need to reach out to. We got Wes Limos with Sales Connector and Jordan Mendoza with Blaze Your Own Trail Marketing Sales Leadership. Please reach out to them. You can find their information and more at the website masterconnector.show. Mr. Zack Knight, every week we like to leave the folks with a little impassioned crush it. We count down to crush it. So are you ready?
Yes, sir. Here we go. We're going to go
right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to shout out crush it. And everyone in the comments are going to type out all caps crush it as well. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Crush it! Go out and have an amazing week, everybody. We will see you same bad time, same bad channel. Zack, thank you for showing up. You're awesome. I am looking forward to meeting you in real life, my friend. I'm looking forward to that opportunity. And, you know, if there's not a better reason to start your podcast, whatever your media thing is, it's getting a chance to talk to somebody like yourself, create that kind of first initial connection. You may not be the guy that goes and hangs out every night in the cocktail parties, but this is one of those things that's a little bit easier to do. It's educational for me and Steve, as well as all of our community. It's something that you can do as well. And there's a lot of space. It's an abundant world. So sending that shout out to everybody. Thanks, Zack. And we got a lot of comments coming here. Crush it, crush it, crush it. We will see you all next week.
You know, he challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn and engagement, being the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunity.
We're all dealing with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth is live on air.